Okay, let's go back a little bit and look at how to write something in this 18th century style using two voices. So, what we're looking at here is what we're going to call a soprano and bass voice. And I think I kind of explained this before, but let me re explain it just to make sure we're all on the same page. What we're going to be doing eventually, what we're building up to, is having a four voiced counterpoint here. So to get started, we're going to work on two voiced counterpoint. And that's going to be really similar to the cantus firmus and counterpoint that we worked on before. But I'm going to use the words soprano and bass because soon, when we have these four voiced things, we're going to be calling them soprano, alto, tenor, bass. All four of those. So when we're doing just a two voiced thing, we need to have some special considerations here. So, how to start this kind of counterpoint when we've got two voices? Basically, what we need to do is start with a really strong sense of tonic. And there's a couple ways we can do this, some good, some less good. So, let's look at them. So, we're in the key of F here. Let's just switch to 4/4. Just to make my life a little bit easier because I'm going to do this in whole notes. So we can start a counterpoint a lot of different ways. The easiest way is going to be to use the tonic scale degree in an octave. So that's going to be very clear that we're implying one, right? Because we're going to start on a one chord, and if both voices are on one, then it's pretty clear that we're on one. We could also do something like this, where we have one in the top voice and the third in the lower voice. This would be a 1/6, meaning it's an inversion, right? Because the tonic is not in the bass voice. We have the third in the bass voice. And that's okay. It's still implying a 1, right? Because we have F and an A. So we have the first third of the tonic triad. It's not as strong to imply 1 this way. It can be done. It can have a tendency for this F to sound like it wants to resolve down to E. That would make a fifth between the A and the E. But as long as you move forward correctly and really emphasize this F, you're okay. It's not as good as just starting off on 1, but it can work. The next way we can do it is the opposite of that. So F and A this way. So we have an F in the bass, tonic, first scale degree, 1 in the bass, the third on the top. This is much stronger to me than this. But both of them are acceptable. Let's put it that way. This really gives us a sense of tonic. It's also one of my favorite sounds. I think I've talked about this in another class, an earlier section of this theory class. But I love this sound. Check it out. Maybe not even that there. Just that. Just having a big F and then an A way above it. Just this big third. I just love that sound. I don't know why. It's just like a weird little quirk of me. Anyway, back to this. So this is a nice sound. It's going to really reinforce tonic quite well. Let's look at another one. Another way we could start off. We could do an F and a C. So this is okay, but not great. Why? The reason is we don't have a third. So we have an F and a C. We have our tonic root note and then the fifth above it. All right. And if you remember, just having a fifth doesn't give us the quality of the chord. It doesn't give us really the flavor of the chord. So we're kind of stuck in this open fifth. It's acceptable, but it's not great. It really doesn't enforce tonic really well. It can give the sense of... It just gives kind of a hollowness that isn't awesome. So do that in a pinch if you really have to, but it's not a great way to start your piece because it doesn't emphasize tonic quite as strongly as these other ones do. There's one other way we could do it that is probably the least strong to emphasize tonic, and that would be something like this. What do I have here? I have the third of our tonic triad and the fifth of our tonic triad, but not the root. That can work, but it's really not a great way to start this kind of a counterpoint, because what are we going to hear in this? What we're actually going to hear is not that this is a third and that this is a fifth. Remember, this is the first thing we're going to hear in the piece. So more likely what we're going to feel when we hear this is that this is a tonic and this is a third above that, because we're going to hear an A and a C. We're going to interpret this right away as being in A minor. So that's not the best way to start off our piece if it's an F, right? Because all of a sudden we're going to feel like we're on the third scale degree, or everything's going to feel off. So we can cause problems by doing that. Saying that this is acceptable is a little weird because remember, we're being a little blurry with the rules now. So yeah, it's acceptable. You can do it, but it doesn't sound good. So why would you? That's kind of where we're heading here, is like what sounds great. So I would not recommend that. If you want to just purely reinforce tonic, go with that. If you want to have a little more color in it, try this one or this one, but this one is less good than this one. If you want to be a little different with it, try this. But all of those are going to emphasize tonic. This one will emphasize tonic in a way, but is not the preferred way to start. Cool? Okay. So that's how we get started and come up with our first interval for this kind of a soprano bass 18th century 2-to-1 style counterpoint.